Welcome to the Synaptics Incorporated Annual Meeting. I'll now hand it over to Rahul Patel, President and Chief Executive Officer.
Will the meeting please come to order? Hello, everyone. I am Rahul Patel, President and Chief Executive Officer of Synaptics. In accordance with our bylaws, I will act as Chair of the meeting. Welcome to our 2025 Annual Meeting of Stockholders. We appreciate your attendance, your interest, and most importantly, your support of Synaptics. We request that if you have questions, please enter and submit them in the space provided on the virtual meeting screen. During the meeting, stockholders should limit questions to the proposals being considered. There will be a general question and answer period following the formal part of the meeting. In addition to myself, we would like to introduce the other directors of Synaptics who are in attendance today. We welcome Nelson Chen, our Board Chair, Jeff Buchanan, Keith Giesling, Susan Hartman, Patricia Kumro, Vivi Lee, and James Wims. The other Synaptics executives who are in attendance today are Ken Rizvi, our Chief Financial Officer, and Lisa Bodensteiner, our Senior Vice President, Chief Legal Officer, and Secretary, who will serve as Secretary for the meeting. Also attending this meeting is Steve Morgan of KPMG LLP, our independent auditor. Although KPMG has indicated that it does not wish to make a statement, Mr. Morgan is available to respond to appropriate questions during general question and answer period. In addition, Christina Vico of CT Hagberg & Associates has been appointed and will serve as the independent inspector of the election for this meeting. We have received her oath of Inspector of Election, which will be filed with the minutes of this meeting. I will now ask Lisa Bodensteiner, the company's Chief Legal Officer and Corporate Secretary, to report on the mailing of the notice for this meeting.
I have received an affidavit of mailing from Broadridge Financial Solutions, the company's investor communications agent, certifying as to the giving of notice of this meeting and sending to stockholders of record as of September 4, 2025, the notice of Internet availability of proxy material commencing on September 16, 2025. The 2025 annual report, which includes financial statements certified by KPMG, was sent or made available to each stockholder entitled to vote at this meeting.
The Secretary has the list of the holders of record of common stock of the company at the close of the business on September 4, 2025. The list of stockholders has been open for examination at the company for any purpose relevant to this meeting during ordinary business hours for the past 10 days. The Secretary will file a copy of the list of stockholders with the records of the company. Ms. Bodensteiner, will you please present your report of attendance at this meeting so that we can determine whether a quorum is present?
Mr. Chair, on September 4, 2025, the record date for this annual meeting, there were outstanding and entitled to vote a total of 39,050,213 shares of common stock. I have been informed by the Inspector of Election that there are 36,497,062 shares of stock represented by proxy, or approximately 93.46% of all the shares entitled to vote at this annual meeting. The shares so represented exceed 50% of the total shares entitled to vote at this meeting and thus constitute a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Bodensteiner. On the basis of the reports of the Secretary and the Inspector of Election, I find that proper notice has been given and that a quorum is present. Accordingly, this meeting has been properly convened.
It is 9:04 a.m. Pacific Time on October 28, 2025, and the polls for voting on all matters are open. All Synaptics stockholders entitled to vote at this meeting have the ability to do so online. If you are a stockholder entitled to vote and have not yet voted, Or if you want to change your previously cast vote, please do so via the website used to access this meeting. Please remember that if you have already voted by proxy, it is not necessary to vote again. After voting has been completed on all matters on the agenda, we will close the polls and the Inspector of Election will provide her preliminary report.
The next matter to come before the meeting is the approval of the proposals. Ms. Bodensteiner, please review the proposals.
The first proposal to come before the meeting is the election of directors. At this meeting, we will be electing 6 directors, each with a term expiring at the 2026 Annual Meeting of Stockholders. The nominees are Jeffrey Buchanan, Keith Geeslin, Patricia Cumrow, Vivi Lee, Rahul Patel, and James Wims. No other nominations were received prior to the deadline established in the company's bylaws. Therefore, no additional nominations may be made at this meeting, and I declare the nominations to be closed. The next matter to come before the meeting is the ratification of the appointment of KPMG LLP to serve as the company's independent auditor for the fiscal year ending June 27, 2026. The next matter to come before the meeting is the approval of the amendment and restatement of the company's amended and restated 2019 Equity and Incentive Compensation Plan. If Proposal 3 is approved by our stockholders, the amended and restated 2019 Equity and Incentive Compensation Plan will become effective today, and the share reserve under the plan will be increased by 1,900,000 shares. The next matter to come before the meeting is the approval of the amendment and restatement of the company's amended and restated 2019 Employee Stock Purchase Plan. If Proposal 4 is approved by our stockholders, the amended and restated 2019 Employee Stock Purchase Plan will become effective today, and the share reserve under the plan will be increased by 1,500,000 shares. Proposal 5 asks stockholders to approve an advisory resolution approving the fiscal year 2025 compensation of the named executive officers described in our proxy statement as follows. Resolved that the compensation paid to the company's named executive officers, as disclosed in the company's fiscal year 2025 proxy statement, pursuant to the Securities and Exchange Commission's executive compensation disclosure rules, which disclosure includes the compensation discussion and analysis section, the compensation tables, and the narrative discussion that accompanies the compensation tables, is hereby approved.
Are there any questions on proposals 1 through 4? The polls are about to close, so if you have not yet voted, please do so. Since all those desiring to vote have done so, I hereby declare the polls for voting on the matters before the meeting closed at 9:08 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The Inspector of Election has delivered her preliminary report to the Secretary, who is now prepared to announce the preliminary results.
Mr. Chair, based on the Inspector of Election's preliminary report, each of the 6 persons nominated for election has received a majority of the votes cast and has been elected as a director of the company to serve for a 1-year term that will expire in 2026. The appointment of KPMG LLP as the company's independent auditor has been ratified. The proposed amendment and restatement of the company's amended and restated 2019 Equity and Incentive Compensation Plan has been approved. The proposed amendment and restatement of the company's amended and restated 2019 Employee Stock Purchase Plan has been approved. And the resolution approving on an advisory basis the compensation of our named executive officers for fiscal 2025, as such compensation is disclosed in the proxy statement, has been approved.
I direct that the final report of the Inspector of Election be filed with the records of this meeting. We expect to report the final results of the voting on a Form 8-K to be filed with the SEC within the next 4 business days. That concludes the business for this meeting. The meeting is now adjourned. I now invite you to ask any questions you may have regarding the company and its business. Please follow the instructions provided on the website used to access this call to submit questions. Thank you for attending today's meeting. We appreciate your continued support as stockholders.
The meeting has now concluded. Thank you for joining. You may now disconnect.